It looks like we are counting, and there we go. Jolly good.
Jolly good.
Hello, happy Tuesday, TeaFlix friends.
Hello, darlings. All bright and bushy-tailed, I gather. I hope so.
Indeed.
I am. My throat's a little bit scratchy. I'm not getting out enough, actually. This lot keep me chained up in the back room, you know.
Well, we should take her out to a football game, make you scream for 2 hours.
Oh, rock concert. Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. No,
that would do it. No.
Not funny, no.
You're doing a lot better than the poor plumber on the SpaceX space station.
Oh, I know. They splashed down last night in the water somewhere, Florida. Poor devils, the toilet wasn't working. And they evidently have built-in, like, Depends into their spacesuit. So,
that's part of the technology I don't really want to hear
really
about.
Can you imagine doing the laundry when they get undressed? But they're all fine, evidently. So that's wonderful.
That is great. The space technology thing amazes me.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't just billionaires that were going, but we'll get there. We'll get there slowly but surely.
What do you reckon? I'm only going to live to be about 100, 102.
You see that lady? She's 105, and she just broke the 100-meter for her age group, and she did 100 meters in like 1 minute and 4 seconds or something. And she's going to do it again when she's 106.
Good girl.
Splendid.
Okay, I'm aiming to keep alive till next Sunday. Well, that'll be 92.
There we go.
Hopefully, if God spares me. Yeah.
Well, speaking of will and tenacity, should we introduce and bring on our fabulous guest for this week?
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be able to welcome the lovely Jack Richter.
And here he is
coming along
now.
All his glory. Hello, Jack.
Hello. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Oh, fine. Lovely to see you again.
Oh, nice to see you.
So you're all bundled up there in a sweater. Tell the folks what part of the world you're in and what the weather's doing.
Well, we're on the East Coast. As you're on the West Coast, it's much warmer there. Here, you know what? I'm not used to it being a Californian transplant. It's in the 50s, and but you know what? Originally, I'm from Minnesota, so
oh yeah,
you know, we'd be washing our
tough guy.
Yeah. So we're on the East Coast. We're about 2 hours outside of New York City.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how long have you been? Because we first met you through former LAPD Chief Bill Bratton.
I know exactly when we met. I'm driving down Figueroa because I'm on my way to USC to meet a deputy chief on some event. And this lovely voice comes on my phone and says, "I'm looking for Jack Richter." And I said, "Well, you found him." And she says, "We're going to attend the Ricky Bratton event this week. And I understand you're in charge of it." And I was. And I said, "Yes. What can I help you with?" She says, "Well, we're looking for parking." And I said, "That's not a problem. You know what? Parking, I've arranged for parking in the building. And we've arranged for everybody significant parking spaces." And I said, and who are you?" And she said, "Oh, my last name's McCartney." And I said,
any relation?
I said, that's what I said. I said, no, I said, "Could you spell that?" Because I didn't want to, you know. And she said, "Same as the left-handed bass player." And I said, "What? Are you related?" She goes, "She's my stepson." I said, I pulled over in traffic.
Carefully, I hope.
Well, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, the cops," and you know, like. And I pulled over and I said, "All right, stop. You know what? We're done. You're talking to a Beatle fan. You're talking to somebody here who is going to meet you at the curb. And if you remember, I had a spot for you better than the chief spot."
Right in front.
Don't tell him that. He might be listening to me, actually.
You were so lovely to me, so nice. And Martin and you both, it was just great meeting you. And you know what? We've been in contact ever since. That's been
absolutely. Yeah, I only wished you would arrest me and pat me down, but nah.
She's been dreaming of you and handcuffs for quite a while.
Oh yeah. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Okay.
Off camera. Yeah.
That's the Betty White in her against talking.
I'm used to it.
And you helped us get organized with Sweet Alice, didn't you? When we were, I thought I was making a documentary.
Yeah.
Until we still.
Well, yeah, I know. But the original investors, when they found out that Sir Paul wasn't going to be in it, they just took their money back. And there it was.
Yeah, Sweet Alice is just a tremendous
wonderful woman
in South Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I worked in South Los Angeles as a patrol officer, and got to know her. Tremendous community figure there, very beloved, and when you met her, you know what? She was just open to meeting you and to sharing an afternoon. I remember that. It was very nice.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we did. We did it at the some fabulous restaurant in Watts.
That's right.
The best chicken and waffles I've ever
Oh
had
yes.
in my whole life.
That's right. That's right. And
I even brought some home.
and Watts has seen so much of a resurgence lately. The
Yes,
area there
great.
has finally turned around after some years of troubles, and
Yes.
they have a deputy chief down there, Imada Tingarides, who's just a tremendous figure in the LAPD.
Oh,
Just
good.
a wonderful. She's just a gangbusters person. First of all,
I need to get to know her, don't I?
you should. She's just a wonderful person, and I guarantee this is a future chief of police. Probably,
super.
if not the first female, she certainly will be one of the future chiefs in the
Good
LAPD.
to know. That's great.
It
Yeah.
always fascinates me when these areas go through what they call regentrification, like Inglewood, because of the football stadium going in.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's also bad for some people who've been there for years. The mom and pops, the small
The
businesses,
little
people
corner
come
shops,
in
yeah.
and they want to triple their rent. It's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, isn't it?
It is, and also you know what's really striking is the home prices have just skyrocketed throughout Los Angeles, of course, but in that area, and it really shuts a lot of people out of home ownership and rent, of course, things like that. And I got to tell you, working as a patrol officer down there, and also I worked with the cadets at the Southeast Station. These are hardworking folks. These are really nice people that are very hardworking, want to get ahead, want to do something for their children, and and you're right, Ruth. It is very tough, and that's a tough thing. Hopefully, that there, as they say, like that trickle down economy is going to catch up to them sometime, where they'll maybe get jobs, maybe they'll have an opportunity to do something for themselves. So it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, I'm dealing a lot within what they call the community, the African American community, with NFTs and a lot of the digital crypto stuff that we're doing. And, you know, I'm so impressed by these young guys that I'm dealing with. They're in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and they just, yes, they want to do well themselves, but they really want to create generational opportunities and generational wealth for the community, because so many of their parents and grandparents were just locked out of it with the red line situation, for example. There were whole areas of the country that couldn't be mortgaged, correct?
Oh, that's very true. And you know who was really who's on the forefront of that, has been for decades, is Magic Johnson.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You know what?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Crenshaw area and all those areas. He's really been instrumental in getting people jobs and turning that community around. It's just been a tremendous force there. That very lucky to have him. So it's just been great.
Yeah, Martin's just reminding me it was the Watts Coffee House.
Yeah. Right.
It's a classic place, beautiful place.
Oh, it's making me hungry now. Stop it.
It's kind of like a movie set too, isn't it?
Yeah.
With all of the old, you know, the 8x10 signed pictures of Phil Jackson and, you know, Magic when he was playing, and some of the little collections and tchotchkes and knickknacks. If you're ever in LA, look up the Watts Coffee House. I swear to God, it's the best breakfast, and it's still only like $6. They just don't gouge anybody. You know?
And I remember they had a cute little patio that we were on too.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still actually going to work on that project. It's called Here's a Story, and it's short bites about strong women. So I would love to meet the deputy chief of Watts and see if we can go interview her.
Well, I tell you, she's just between you and Angie. You know what? She's a talker too, and you know what? You'll fill more than a half an hour of your time. But she's full of energy and just a tremendous force. So she's awesome.
Super. Well,
I'll never forget Sweet Alice that day. Some kid came in the coffee shop with his Calvin Klein's showing up around his hips and his jeans pulled down around his butt. I mean, he wasn't bare butted, but he was showing his underwear. She went over to him. She said, "You pull your drawers up. Nobody wants to see your butt." She went up to a complete stranger at 85 years old and started giving him hell.
And did you notice he did?
He did.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, Miss yes, sweet Alice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
Well, she
is
has lots of cred in, as they say, in that community, and they
Yeah.
really respect her. And but that's taken years to get there, you know. And so
There
she's
are
been
some
doing that for
great,
years. I'm sorry.
I was going to say there's some great YouTube videos about Alice, sweet Alice.
Yeah.
A lot of them, really interesting stuff of some of the wonderful work she's done over the years.
Yeah.
I was so impressed when I saw her collection of pictures of her and all the time she's been on Air Force One. It's like when it lands at LAX, apparently sweet Alice just has an open invitation to come aboard for tea.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, isn't that funny? Because our president, our former president, Barack Obama, actually said to the effect of, you know what, the work begins in your community, and that's what she's always done. And
Absolutely.
It goes out much farther than that, you know, and people remember it, and like you. And so you have people like that in your little corner. As my grandmother used to say, you know, don't worry about the big picture, fix your little corner. And I always thought that was a good viewpoint of the world myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you and I, when we were prepping for this the other day, we were talking about all of your, I considered, heroic work with people experiencing homelessness. The unhoused folks that, you know, you've come to know and become friends with, and how tragic it is when something happens and you have to go identify a body, or it's just, how do you fix that, you know? But it's one person at a time, as you know.
I spent 10 years on Skid Row as a patrol officer, and when you're there, you know, initially you're like everybody else. You kind of collectively think of people as, hey, you know what? Why don't you get out and do something with yourself, or why don't you get out and make yourself better in life? But if you get out of the car and you walk, which I did almost every day as a patrol officer, I would walk some of those areas. You can't help but talk to people and to meet people and to get to know.
I mean, we're all humans. You know, when I see people on the side of the road, or even in motorhomes and RVs, that we have a lot of them here on the West Side, it's like, this was somebody birthed this baby. This was a tiny little baby at one point in their life.
Loved.
And, you know, loved by a mother, presumably. And it can all just go so wrong so quickly. But you were also telling me that the best way, you know, people think they're helping dropping off food on street corners.
Yeah. You know, I tried to dissuade people from doing that when I was a senior lead officer down there as well. And what that means is that you're responsible for a specific area of the city. And half of my specific area was 16 blocks of Skid Row. And I tried to dissuade groups, well-intentioned. I mean, no doubt about it. They would come down and saying, hey, you know what, we're here to help people. And I would try to convince them that the real true way of helping people is not by giving them money, is not by throwing food out the back. We used to call it throw food out the back door.
Right.
And that's because they do have those services there. If you really want to help someone on the street, there are many missions and organizations down in Skid Row and also throughout the United States, actually, when you think about it. The Salvation Army is a good one, where they are always looking for volunteers, not just on Christmas, but on days when, you know, let's say in the middle of the summer when it's very hot and they need someone to help with water or whatever like that. There are many good things that you can do to help with an organization. It's much more functional, much more
organized.
Yeah, and it's tough. You know, I remember one day I was walking down San Pedro, near 5th and San Pedro, which I have to tell you is a really dangerous corner. It's for many reasons. There's lots of problems going on down there. And I was walking along, and, you know, people talk to you. And I mean, you're obviously in a uniform. And those that don't talk to you, you know, but that's fine too. But I'm walking and I'm saying, hi, how you doing? What's going on? And I see this woman who was maybe in her 60s. And she was in a wheelchair, a manual wheelchair, one of those ones that you fold up in a car.
Yeah.
and but she had no hands and no feet.
Oh my God.
And I stopped and I looked and I thought, well,
How?
how's that possible? First of all, how'd you get there? So I had to go talk to her, and her name was Janice. And I said, after we got, I introduced myself, and we got to talking, and then I come out and I ask specific personal questions. What are you doing here? And what's going on? And why are you in this chair? And she said, well, I have diabetes and I've lost my limbs. And I said, well, where is, how do you get around? She goes, well, people push me around in this chair. And I said, well, okay. Did you ever have one of those electric chairs? She goes, yeah, I have one, but it's in storage and it's broken.
Oh.
I said, well, okay. Do you have a social worker? She goes, yeah, I do. And she gave me the number of this social worker. So I went back to the station. I called this social worker and I said, hey, do you know Janice? Forget her last name. And she says, oh yeah, Janice. Yeah, I know Janice. And says, you know what? She's kind of an angry person. I said, well,
surprise.
If I didn't have any feet and no hands and I was on Skid Row, I'd be pretty angry too.
Yeah.
I said, what's going on with her wheelchair? She goes, well, you know what, this. I said, look, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go down to the storage there and I'm going to get that wheelchair out myself and I'm going to pay for it myself and get that thing fixed and get that out there to her. Do you understand? And then I want to talk to your supervisor, which is always in government to talk to somebody, right? And she says, well, let me get back to you. So 2 hours later, it wasn't 2 hours, she called me back and she said, we're on our way to the storage unit. We're going to get that thing out. And they did. She called me maybe a week later and said, I'm in an apartment down on, I think it was 48th and Central. There was an apartment, like a transitional apartment, and she had her wheelchair and her electric wheelchair fixed, but it took a little bit of urging to get this done. And
wow.
It's a vacuum there and it's very tough.
Yes.
And you're right. I have met people and then I have seen people expire, die in Skid Row, and it's tough.
It is. You were telling me a fascinating thing that I never, because when you're king of the hill and you have a roof over your head and hot and cold running water and a fridge full of stuff.
Yeah, are we lucky?
Yes, we are. And we have our health and our mental health and love and whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of people, we count our blessings, all three of us, every single hour of every day. A lot of people don't. They just grumble and complain because that's who they are and who they've become. Yeah. But when you were telling me about the hierarchy and the top, the middle, and the bottom, and the Skid Row and the bottom, I was absolutely blown away to even, because, we as a society, we don't get up close in somebody's grill who's living on the street because we're fearful and we're, especially with COVID, we don't know who's got what. And, we just feel from the comfort of our PayPal credit cards, we can just fix it with, $100 here and there. Right.
Well, there is a social structure on the street, and no matter where, even anywhere, where there's homeless, there is a structure, and you as a homeless person cannot go to any particular corner and say, well, I'll plop down here, because there's always somebody there who's going to say, hey, this is my street, get out. And so it's really tough. It's particularly hard for people, for women, for people with physical disabilities, for people with mental disabilities, and older people. It's very tough. And there, as you were saying, the place called the Bottom, there was it was an industrial avenue right off of Central, and it was one block of what we called, and what they called on the street, the Bottom. This is where you landed, where no one else would take you. And it was the worst of the worst. I mean, it was bad. And the MTA there finally took it over and cleaned up the street. But honestly, I don't know what happened to a lot of those people. They just disseminated into the darkness. And
so what you're saying to me is sort of on every street corner or encampment or whatever, there's a mayor, there's a consigliere, right?
There's someone in charge. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Really?
It's usually the the strongest person with wielding the most power, whether that's physically or whether they have people behind them or whatever it is. But that's very true. So it's very tough, and it's tough to be on the street.
Anyway.
Yeah, it is. But great experience for me. I really enjoyed working there.
Oh.
And it's funny you should say that, Ruth, about being so thankful. You know, I never got over that. And I still feel that way. When I would come home from working Skid Row, I was always so grateful I had a warm place to sleep and food and things. And
socks, clean underwear, hot water.
It's very tough. And the city is doing, honestly, I know a lot of people are criticizing them. The city's doing all they can. It's a very complex issue.
Well, this is what one of our regular viewers, our dear friend Mark Lindsay from Houston, he's got a retail business in a shopping center, and there's a girl been sleeping out there, and he literally has been looking for resources this morning, and then he tunes into our show and we're talking about this whole problem. There are a lot of people, evidently including this young lady, who don't want to reach out. They don't want to get help for whatever reason. Is there any kind of, you know, sort of tack that you can take with people who are resisting assistance? I mean, I know everybody's different. It's probably too broad of a question, but have you ever seen any kind of persuasive argument work on people who just don't want to help themselves?
I would say the majority, for a variety of reasons, don't want to get off the street. A lot of times there's really very little incentive for them to go, because if you're going to say, we want you to go here, they're going to say, well, I don't want to go there. I want to, you know, I want to be with my friends. I want to be with people who aren't judge me and things like that. So it's very tough, and it's very tough to convince somebody. I particularly remember there was a guy named, at least I think his name was Joe. I knew Joe for many, many years. Him and his dog Cookie lived down on 3rd Avenue near the Little Tokyo. And 2 or 3 times since I knew him in about 10 years, he had gone into an apartment. But shortly after that, I would find him back on the street again. And I'd say, hey, what happened? He goes, no, I didn't like it.
Wow.
And so it's tough. It's very complex. You know, it's not a question of,
I guess you have to get to the root of the problem. If it's a runaway, who and what are they running away from, and how far, and how long has it been going on? And it's, especially with women and young women, it's often to do with addiction, which cycles in from lack of self-esteem, which cycles in from some kind of abuse, mental, physical, sexual, whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, these people like yourself that spend years out there on the street getting to know these people, and some of them just don't want to be helped. It's got to be so frustrating. We
used to have and I will tell you, there are times where there are some really funny things that happen on Skid Row. Even in the midst of all that sadness, there's some funny things that had occurred. That we had this woman, her street name was Shorty. And it really fit because well, let me tell you, this Shorty was about maybe 3.5 feet tall.
Oh, she was really short.
And she would stand on 4th and San Pedro with a cup, and she would shake this cup and scream at the police cars, including me, when call me names and things when I would drive by. And she would shake the cup for handouts from drivers that would go by. And I, for years, had seen her. And so we had a sergeant at Central who had a birthday, and he'd been on Skid Row even longer than me. And one day he had during his birthday, he came to work, and we said, hey, Tom, we have a birthday cake surprise for you out in the garage. And he came out to the garage, and somebody had made a cardboard birthday cake, like a 3-layered one, that real crude, had magic marker, happy birthday, Sergeant Walker, and we sang happy birthday, and then the cake exploded, and Shorty jumped out. She goes, ta-da! I'm telling you. And then she goes, give me my $5. because somebody had said, if you do this, we'll give you $5.
Oh,
that's
God.
great.
How lovely.
And then she took her $5 and she walked out of
But
there.
you were telling me another funny one the other day when I was referencing, for those of you who've ever been to Venice Beach over here, there's a very famous character called Jimmy, and he wears a white turban and white flowing robes, and he's got a Fender Stratocaster and a battery-powered amp strapped to his back, and he's on roller skates.
Yeah.
He goes up and down Venice Beach, and he charges for selfies, of course, and he's, takes donations for his money. And it's years ago, we were at the Sidewalk Cafe having brunch, and I said, that guy probably drives a BMW and lives in Beverly Hills. Well, son of a bitch, if I don't move to Playa del Rey. I'm walking up Manchester one day, up the big hill right in front of the beach, and I see Jimmy with his roller skates over his, all dressed up in his kind of ratty, looks like it's never been washed white thing, and his turban, putting his Fender and his amp in the back of a BMW. He has a house over here. You were telling me about the guy at Union Station.
Yeah, for years there was a guy. He would be standing out in front, and he was what we call a huffer. He would inhale paint. That was his gig, and so he would have like paint around his lips and wearing dirty old clothes, and he would be panhandling right in front of the station. Of course, that's going to get a phone call from the station management. Police are going to come, and I would drive by and I would say, hey, you know what, get out of here. You know what? And I finally got tired of telling him. And one day I said, okay, here's the deal. If I see you here again, I'm going to write you a ticket. This ticket is going to turn into a warrant because I know you're not going to pay it. And then the warrant, I'm going to arrest you and I'm going to take you to jail. And then you're going to learn a lesson. I said, you know what? I can't have you here. Do you understand? Do you have any questions for me? And he goes, yes. I said, what? He says, what days do you work?
Oh, boy.
I want your day off because I'm going to be.
I said, okay. I got back in the car. I started laughing. I thought, well, that was pretty. That was too good. So,
that sounds like a scene from a movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And he is just one of those people that Ruth was talking about. He is actually one of those people that the clothes that he has are his uniform because he lived up in a house up in the East Side with his mother. And he would go down there and I'd say, well, how much money do you make a day? He says, about $100. And I said, well, who gives you money? And he said, mostly the people I compliment. I'm like, what? He said, somebody would walk by and I'd say, wow, you're really looking great today. And they would like, oh, okay, here's $1. You know? And he would make about $100 a day. And I don't know if he's there today as we're talking. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But now, how did this all? Because obviously, when you're on the the LAPD Hollywood division, downtown LA, all of that stuff, you mix and mingle with the hoi pollois and the famous. How did that help or hinder your acting career? Because you've done quite a few parts, haven't you?
Yeah, you know what? Just like you, I've been able to meet and get involved with to some extent, some pretty famous people. I mean, it's amazing on how, even a very famous person is going to approach a police officer with no problem. Little do they know that behind the badge, I'm a huge fan. And I try to not, get too over this. I would have to say the only person that I ever really lost it with was Red Buttons. Remember Red Buttons?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
First year on the job, he asked for some help. He was he was trying to get across traffic at the Academy Awards, and he goes, I heard officer, and I'm like, who's calling me? And I look over and I see this guy standing out. Limos are going by, and there's this little guy out there, and I'm like, whoa. And I said, stop. So I stopped the traffic and I grabbed him and I said, come this way, sir. Red Buttons. Oh my gosh. Since I was a kid, I was a huge fan. And I just totally lost it because he's just one of my all-time favorites. And then of course, then you meet all these people that actually have tremendous influence, like Brian Grazer and Ron Howard, who's just a delightful, well, just a delightful man.
I saw their names this morning. They are the executive producers on a new film about Julia Child, which goes in theaters this Friday. Yeah,
good.
I was just actually writing their names on my pad to try and find out who their production company is, because we've got this project with 500 chefs that we're doing, Gourmet NFT, where we're going to turn recipes into digital downloads and get chefs paid like rock stars. And I thought, if Ron Howard and Brian Grazer have got such a Jones for food and Julia Child, maybe maybe it's something they want. So it's good to hear that they're nice blokes. If I can wrangle a way to get in touch, I certainly will.
Really, and very down to earth, very kind. I've been to Brian Grazer's house twice for work related stuff, and Ron Howard, the second time I saw him, I said, "Hey, you live in New York, don't you?" He goes, "Yeah, I live on." He told me the street, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know where that is." He goes, "Well, next time you're in New York, stop by." And I'm like, "Okay."
Nice.
Like, I don't think so, but okay. Can you see me telling the doorman, "Hey, he told me to come by"? They'd be like,
tell Opie get the kettle on.
get out of here, So, but as far as, I did some theater and I did some commercials. I did some small parts in films before I got on LAPD, and that got me back into media relations because they found out that I had some camera experience and things that I had done, and that's how I met Chief Bratton.
Yes.
And and I know that you're friends of him and Ricky, and I got to tell you, two of the nicest people you ever want to meet. And
couldn't agree more.
And the funny thing about Chief Bratton is I was quite often in the presence of political figures, people that were famous for whatever reason. But when Chief Bratton walked into a room, I never saw such deference to this person that everyone would turn and wait for him to say something or to do something. It's kind of like, it's hard to explain. There's an aura about this guy that was just tremendous. And he was just a tremendous figure in our police department. And
he's very, very basic, kind and approachable, but there was that other side to him. I call it that Bill Clinton thing. Bill Clinton's got it too. When you are in a room and Bill Clinton walks into it, the air changes.
Amazing. I had never really seen that until I started working for him, and I'm like, wow, okay. I saw people that were far above his pay grade defer to him, and talk to him.
Well, he knows of what he speaks, and he bullshitteth not. He just gets the job done.
And he likes cats.
And he's a cat
person. So
see, I didn't know that.
He came here once for a 4th of July barbecue with John Miller. Ricky called me on the 4th of July morning. She said, "Are you guys barbecuing today?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to, grab a package of hot dogs and come on over? I've got, plenty of side dishes and whatever. Bring what you're drinking." And she's like, "Well, you're kidding, right? The chief drinking on the 4th of July? Don't think so." So, and and then she called about 45 minutes before, and she said, we had to give them your address. So, because John Miller and his wife and his baby daughter will be joining us, if that's okay. They're bringing hot dogs. I'm like, okay, fine. So she said, so you might notice some helicopter action above your house to just check out the neighborhood before we arrive. We're sitting out here eating hot dogs.
John Miller. Now there's an interesting person.
Oh, yes.
He was the last person to interview Osama bin Laden, was he not?
Mm-hmm. And he was right down the hall from me when I was working in the old station, the headquarters, and talked to him quite often, not about the Osama bin Laden, but about a number of issues. Do you know, the thing about John Miller is, and Chief Bratton's the same way, is that, and I really am so jealous, these people have photographic memories.
Yeah.
So Chief Bratton says to me, I need you to give me these facts and figures on the homicide rate for the South Bureau and for the FBI and all this kind of, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to impress him, so I'm going to bring a whole mess of stuff, right? So I bring him a whole mess of stuff, and he goes, no. Just, you know what? I like charts and I like something really simple and the figures and the numbers. And I said, oh, okay. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty easy. So I bring him the stuff. He looks at it. He throws it over his shoulder and he went up in front of the national press and read it all verbatim, the numbers and the whole, and I'm like, okay, he doesn't need my help.
Oh, well, you're the researcher. He couldn't
Yeah,
have
but he
memorized.
didn't need my help. You know, he didn't need my help at all. And so I was like, wow, that guy's really quite tremendous. So
I tell you what, on the Richter scale, if you pardon the expression, I wonder how we're doing for name dropping today.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Between Paul McCartney, Red Buttons, Bill Clinton, John Miller. A lot of people may not know well, I don't know his exact title at the FBI, but he was a big boy at the FBI.
I believe he's still working for the NYPD.
Okay.
I think he's the what they would call the terrorist expert.
That's right.
And I'm sure that there's a federal funding that's involved in all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to find anybody who is more comparable to his skill and knowledge of those things. And he's just totally the nicest guy you ever want to meet. But
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And if you talk to him about stuff, he just kind of like says, well, this is what it is, blah, blah, blah. And he'll just tell you the facts and figures of something that he read. And he's not looking at cards or anything like that or getting help for anything. And I'm a little jealous about that because usually I have a hard time trying to figure out where I park my car.
Well, there's an app for that, Jack.
Oh, God.
So now you are retired from LAPD and you've moved back east and you're getting back into doing some acting, right?
I am. You know what? It's that darn pandemic. And I, you know what? I can't complain because I've been so lucky. But the pandemic really slammed the theater world. And before I became a police officer, I was an equity actor and a SAG actor. And back then it was AFTRA as well. And so I was kind of making a living in Minneapolis, Chicago area. Kind of tough. It's a tough place to make a living anywhere, but back there, the work is there are fewer jobs, obviously, but I was doing okay, but I couldn't take the winters. So I went out to Los Angeles, not as an actor. I went out to Los Angeles because my wife's a teacher and she got offered a job. And so I said, well, you know what? It's warmer in Los Angeles, let's go. So went out there with our daughter and went out and I'm looking for a job and I got an agent and I went to a couple auditions and I'm thinking, this isn't any different than the Midwest. I mean, it's just more people at the audition. Not any different. And I'm like, well, I don't really care too much for this at the moment because the business side of that is, for me, it's a little
ugly.
Yeah.
It's a little weird. And so I'm at a job fair for Disney at the LA Convention Center.
Oh, yeah.
And there, LAPD, you know what? Anywhere they can go to recruit for free, they're going to go. So they had a booth at this job fair for Disney Studios. So I'm walking by and I saw these cops and I said, hey, what's happening? And they said, nothing. Hey, do you want to, take the test here for the police department? And I said, oh, no. I said, I think I'm past that in age. And he said, well, we don't have an age restriction right now. And the test tonight is in Wilshire Station. I had no idea where Wilshire Station was. I had barely been in Los Angeles. And so I went home and talked to my wife and my daughter, and they said, well, you always wanted to do that. And I said, yeah, I did. You know what? I'm gonna go. I went and took the test. Obviously, I passed. And I got a letter from them. And then they started sending me this. There's like 9 steps to be a cop. And I'm not kidding. It's 1 out of 1,000 applicants get the job.
Wow.
And I kept on getting up to these steps. And I got to the 4th step. And I said to my wife, I said, I think they're going to hire me. She goes, yeah, they are. And I'm like, oh, I better get running.
Oh, crap.
You're in the academy, run by your house in Playa del Rey. And I got to, you got to get out there and run and stuff. So I was out running. I was in Alaska and I was running at 12 midnight in the sun and doing all these things. And sure enough, they gave me a job.
Wow.
And I got to say, you know what? God bless the men and women in uniform.
Absolutely.
The cops, because tough job. I loved it. I just had a great time. I mean, the nicest people you could ever work for, the nicest people you could work with. And I'd say for the majority of the time, I got nothing but positive feedback from the public. It was a great experience. I really don't regret it at all. It's kind of like, you know who Dean Stockwell is? Dean Stockwell.
Yes, he's just passed away, hasn't he?
He did. And you know what he did? He took breaks from his acting career. I don't know if you know that, but it was kind of interesting because he said, all right, I've had enough of this acting thing for now. I'm going to go sell real estate. So he'd go to Arizona and sell real estate for a couple of years. And then he said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go over and do this. And he would do a couple of things. And then he would come back and be an actor. And I thought, well, I'm going to do that. You know what? I'm going to jump through those open doors and do this.
Yes.
And now I've come back to the theater thing. And I hate to say it. Now I have older roles. Now I'm no longer the 30-year-old guy in the play. Now I'm the 30-year-old guy's dad, and kind of weird for me.
It could be worse, Jack. You could be his granddad.
I'm sure that's coming. You know what?
Or you could be the body in the coffin at the funeral.
So that's kind of weird. But you know, Katharine Hepburn, who actually lived right up the road from me here. She said one time as an actor, she says, what you have to do, and I believe that you two do this, is that you have to bring a bag of tools every day to every job.
That's right.
And she meant that because in her career, she started out as the young ingenue, then she was the middle-aged, and then towards the end of her career, she played the Ruth Cogburn woman and all these, you know, and she was smart because that's what kept her employed.
That's right.
And that's what kept her on top of her game. And so I thought, well, by gosh, that's what I got to do. And
well,
so,
and as a woman in the 50s and 60s, when you think about it, because, you know, even today in Hollywood, you hit 50. If you're a woman in Hollywood, you're like yogurt. You pass your sell-by date, and then you're not interesting again until you turn to cheese, right?
It's very tough. And
so, you know, I think she was quite a remarkable woman. And of course, the love of her life, Spencer Tracy, said famously about acting, two things: learn your lines and don't bump into the furniture.
One rainy afternoon, my family, it sounds kind of weird, but I haunt graveyards, and there are literally old graveyards around. There's old graveyards all throughout the Northeast here, and there's many famous people in these beautiful graveyards. Katharine Hepburn is up in Hartford, and we drove there. And we had a picnic at her family's grave area. And I don't know if she would have liked that or not. But I thought, you know what? She's just a great role model for my daughter thinks of her as an activist more than an actor.
You know? And there are women that didn't really, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the outlets in those days. Women like that were sort of confined to their role in the screen.
Yeah.
But when they got out, boy, you know, again, you know, Jane Fonda is famous for being an activist, but there were so many others who never really made a big name for it. I was reading up on Josephine Baker the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She went to Paris in 1926 with her La Revue Negre, which was all of her African-American friends from Harlem and, you know, the Cotton Club and all of that stuff. And she took Berlin and Paris and whatever by storm. And then when she was too old to perform, she took up the cause of child abuse, homeless children, feeding children, this, that, and the other. And she did more. She's the only woman, foreign woman, to be buried in France with full military honors.
Really?
Yep. Because of all she did for the little street kids in Marseille and Toulouse and all that stuff.
Because she used her platform.
That's
correct.
Right.
And so did Katharine Hepburn. And you know, nowadays it's commonplace, the Greta Thunbergs and, you know, those kind of people. But for a woman like Katharine Hepburn, to not care about being politically correct with the studio system in Hollywood and just speaking her mind and doing her thing. She was quite the trailblazer. No, I think she would have liked people coming to have a picnic with her. Why not?
My family thought it was a little weird, but when we got there, and I actually showed some clips, and then we talked a little bit about her and her upbringing. Her family, her father was a physician, but her mother was an activist who was early women's rights and a number of issues in America. And if you read anything about her or see her, you know what? If you get a chance, the Dick Cavett interview that with her is tremendous.
Good. I'll go look for it.
I'll definitely go look that up. And maybe she'll inspire us to get Here's a Story women's digital pieces going again. And we can go down and refresh Sweet Alice and phone you in by Facebook so you can be a fly on the wall at the Watts Coffee House. And
you too. You know what? You two are great role models. I mean, well, you are. I'm sorry, but you know what? I got to say, you know what? I really appreciate people who really make the use of their day. And I can't believe that you guys just are going to like not take use of your day. I just don't believe that. Because you're always doing something. You're always working. You're always, you know what? And not to mention the great tea that you sell.
Well, thank you indeed. We did an email blast last Sunday and literally completely sold out of Magical Mint, the new flavor, in a couple of hours. So there's a truck coming today with the next order in it. And so Angie's working on her 4th book. There Are Faces I Remember.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How do you write every day? That's a problem with writing.
Oh, well, let's put it down to my plumbing system. My bladder wakens me up very early. I make a quick trip to the potty, come back and think, I'll just check email. And that's fatal. Once I've done that, I think, I started this morning. Ruth was just teasing my hair before we did this. I look like a civilized person once a week. And I was sitting in the bathroom while she was doing my hair. And I started to laugh, and she said, "What now?" I said, I've no idea why, but I've just had a vision, a recollection of being 7 years old. And just after my father died, a family friend called Bert Kelly used to come to our house right after Sunday morning mass to see my mother. And they would go in the kitchen. And I didn't know why, but I thought he wanted to marry my mother. But it wasn't that, because my mother always had a bottle of sherry in the gas boiler in the kitchen, and they'd pour it into cups in case anybody came in and drink sherry in the kitchen and just chat.
Sunday morning.
Perfectly happily married man, Alice's wife, 5 kids, good Catholic. He wouldn't have dreamed of putting a foot wrong, but I thought he wanted to marry my mum. So I used to get his hat, his trilby hat, and take it in the living room and jump up and down on it. And for some unknown reason, I just remembered that today. And she's trying to put makeup on me and tidy my hair.
Her mind is like the magical mystery tour. You just don't know what's going on in there.
So this just came to you, this memory?
Yes.
Yeah, this morning, yeah.
Yes, I have no idea why or
those
how.
Are kind of scary, those moments.
It is. It's because I'm mentally unsound, I think.
Yes.
Unsound mind.
But I always wonder whenever I have one of those, it's like, wow, I haven't thought of that in decades. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
It's always kind of scary when you think about that stuff.
It's like an old dusty filing cabinet. Sometimes you just open the wrong drawer.
That's when you slam it back to
and try and find the key.
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna listen to that one anymore.
That is wild. Well, this has been delightful, Jackie. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's lovely.
And you are Jackie Richter on Facebook. I don't know if you need any more friends, but the folks that hang out with us are good uns. And if there's anywhere, particularly in the city of Houston, that you can think of after the call in the next day or two, that I can forward to my friend Mark Lindsay to help this poor young girl out who's sleeping in that shopping center, that would be tremendously amazing.
Contact me. You know what? I would say that if you do have an issue with anybody that you run into, there are lots and lots of social services to be found. Every city has something. Every city has something. It's just you just have to make an effort. They are people.
He's just saying this has been amazing and timely. So
Good.
there,
Oh, yes.
I will definitely put you and Mark in touch. And
Okay.
Okay.
who knows, you know, like you running across the lady who needed her electric wheelchair, that one phone call might
Just
might
help
well do it.
somebody. Yeah.
So Mark with a C, Lindsay's going to send you a friend request on Facebook.
Okay.
And
Wonderful. All right.
Great.
you never know where life takes us, right?
Let's
All
do
right.
it again, Jack, soon.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
sweetheart. You
God
have a
bless.
fantastic Thanksgiving and
Thank you.
wonderful Christmas time. And hopefully we can all get together in person when this crazy shit is all over next year.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I could sit on your couch with you.
Oh,
Yes,
yes. That'd
indeed.
be nice. Yeah.
Always welcome, but
Have
you
a
got to
little-
bring the handcuffs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another story.
Key though, so I don't know where that's going on.
We just don't tell your wife why you're packing the handcuffs. That's all.
Oh,
For a
she's-
crazy 92-year-old.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's my daughter that's the one that's going to give me a problem. So okay.
Okay.
All
God
right, my
bless,
sweet.
Jack.
Well,
thank you so much.
Lots of love to you, and thanks for spending the time and lightening our day and giving
Okay.
us lots and lots of stuff to think about. You're a hero. Thank you.
My pleasure. Love you both.
Love you.
Love
both.
you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.